In this video, I'm going to be showing you my guns blazing build for Update 2.0 in Cyberpunk 2077. Now to start off with, these are the weapons that I used in my testing for this build. Now this SMG can be purchased in Dogtown at this weapon vendor here on the map. I'm not sure if you can get it from other places, but that's where I got it from. Now these weapons are not needed for this build, these are just what I used for testing, though this build will not work with tech weapons. And now that that's out of the way, let's go to the skills for this build. Now to start off with, I went 15 in body, 20 in reflexes, and 20 in ability. And I did put 1 point into cool, so if you want to, you can unlock Road Warrior, because we will be using a Sandevistan, as well as a Kreznikov, and this will just give you increased weapon damage when your vehicle is drifting or airborne. On top of that, if you do want to, you could get feline footwork for this build, but I didn't. Also for this build, I am using these two relic perks, as you can see here, though these are not needed for this build, which makes it compatible with those who do not own Phantom Liberty. So let's start off with body. Now these are the perks that I put into body, with the main focus being health regen, as well as adrenaline rush, and its supporting perks. And really quickly, I went with Comeback Kid, which is health regen rate, as well as Speed Junkie for health regen rate while sprinting, and Army of One, which is even more health regen rate depending on how many enemies are near you. Now for the adrenaline perks, I went with Calm Mind, which will just make it so adrenaline takes 3 seconds before it starts to decay, as well as Juggernaut to increase movement and damage, as well as Unstoppable Force, which is going to gain us immunity to movement penalties, as well as non-damaging status effects. Now for Reflex. Now these are the perks that I put into Reflex, mainly focusing on maneuverability with the dash perks, as well as unlocking Submachine Gun Fun and Salt in the Wound. On top of that, I did get Sharpshooter and of course Ready, Rested, and Reloaded, as these are required to unlock Salt in the Wound and Submachine Fun. To start off with, we'll focus on the movement for reflexes. I went with Slippery, which is just going to make it harder for enemies to hit you. And we went with the supporting perk Muscle Memory, which is going to allow us to reload while sprinting, sliding, and vaulting. And Multitasker, which is going to allow us to shoot as well while sprinting, sliding, and vaulting. Now the next perk I went with, which is Dash. Now this is going to give us the ability to dash, as well as reduce the stamina cost for dashing. Next up for the supporting perk, I went with Steady Grip, which just allows you to shoot while dashing. And then the next perk, which is Air Dash. Now this is going to unlock the ability to dash in midair, as well as increase our dash speed and reduce our dash stamina cost. And then after that, I went with Tailwind, which is just going to increase our stamina from performing air dashes and double jump, as well as it's not going to cost stamina to perform air dashes. Now for the supporting perks for Air Dash, I went with Aerodynamic, which is going to be plus 30% mitigation strength while we are in the air, and then Aerial Acrobat, which just improves our maneuverability while we are in the air. Now next up, I went with Air Kreznikov. Now this is only going to affect while using assault rifles and SMGs, which is why this build is mainly focused on assault rifles and SMGs. Now when you activate the Kreznikov in midair, it keeps you suspended in the air and extends its duration, which is going to make it really nice and a lot easier for you to hit those shots. Now next up, we have Ready, Rested, and Reloaded. Now, of course, all these perks that I'm going to be mentioning are only going to affect assault rifles or SMGs. Now for this Ready, Rested, and Reloaded perk, it is going to reduce our stamina cost for shooting assault rifles and SMGs, as well as increase our reload speed when we are above 50% stamina. Now the supporting perks that I went for this are Spice of Life, as well as Tunnel Vision. Now Spice of Life, which is going to give us plus 15% weapon swap speed. Now this is extremely crucial for the SMGs, as well as it's going to reduce our bullet spread by 30% for a brief period after swapping weapons. And for Tunnel Vision, it is just going to increase our effective range and accuracy by 20% for assault rifles and SMGs. Now next up is the Sharpshooter perk. Now for level 1, it just increases our aim speed by 15%. Level 2 will just increase our weapon handling. And then for level 3, each successful shot grants a stack of Sharpshooter, which is plus 7% stamina regen rate for 2 seconds per stack, which you can stack up to a total of 7 times. Now the supporting perks for Sharpshooter are going to be Practice Makes Perfect, is going to be a plus 7 crit chance and crit damage per stack of Sharpshooter, as well as we are getting Gun Dancer, which aiming no longer slows movement and allows you to shoot while vaulting. Now that is a required perk for us to get Air Kreznikov. Now for the top perks here is of course Salt in the Wound. Now shooting the same target a 7th consecutive time deals bonus damage equal to 100% of the total damage from the preceding shots, which is just going to increase our damage over time from doing damage to the same enemy. And then the next and final perk for Reflexes. Now this is Submachine Fun. Now this is only going to affect SMGs, and what it does is swapping SMGs is faster and automatically reloads them. So what this is going to allow us to do, paired with the Spice of Life, is we are no longer going to have to reload SMGs, and we can just swap between them, continuously raining bullets on our enemies. On top of that, it is going to give us a plus 22% fire rate after swapping to an SMG. Now this will be removed if you manually reload the weapon. And then the last perk tree for this build is Technical Ability. Now for Technical Ability, I went with these perks here, with the main focus to unlock Ticking Time Bomb, as well as Edge Runner. So to start off with, I'm going to go here to the bottom left, which is Glutton for War. This is just going to give us a 5% instant recharge rate of health items and grenades after neutralizing an enemy, as well as the supporting perks, which is going to increase our recharge speed for health items when you only have used one charge, as well as Transfusion, which is 30% health from the final charge of your health item. And then the next perk is going to be Health Freak. Now this is going to increase our recharge speed for health items and grenades, as well as our max item charge. And it will give us a 150% recharge speed for health items outside of combat. Now the supporting perks for Health Freak are going to be Borrowed Time, which is a 100% instant recharge of a health item after neutralizing an enemy if you are below 25% health and have no more charges remaining. The next supporting perk is Coming in Hot, which is a 50% recharge speed for grenades when you have none available. And then Demolition's Surplus, which is going to increase our max grenade charge, as well as our recharge speed outside of combat. And then the last supporting perk for Health Freak is going to be Field Medic. Now this is going to give us a 15% faster use of health items while in combat. And then the next perk we are going to be unlocking is Pyromania. Now this is going to increase our recharge speed for health items and grenades even more, as well as increase the explosion radius for grenades and projectile launch system, though we don't use that in this build. And then for level 3, it is going to increase our movement speed and explosion damage for 12 seconds after hitting an enemy with an explosion in combat. And now the supporting perk for Pyromania is going to be Heat Shield, which is plus 10% mitigation chance per stack of Pyromania. And now for the Cyberware perks. I went with All Things Cyber, which is going to increase our stat modifiers by 10%, as well as a minus 20 Cyberware capacity cost for Cyberware that is in the Integumentary System and Skeleton. On top of that, the supporting perks are Chrome Constitution, which is minus 5% incoming damage if all Integumentary System and Skeleton Cyberware slots are filled, which they are for this build, as well as Resonance Punk, which is going to be a plus 4 Cyberware capacity for each attribute at 9 or higher. And then the last supporting perk here is Driver Update. Now this is going to give us an additional stat modifier for our Cyberware. Now next up is License to Chrome. This is going to give us a 10% to all Cyberware stat modifiers, as well as 40 armor, and unlock a new Cyberware slot for the Skeleton. On top of that, all Skeleton Cyberware will have boosted stats. Now the supporting perk for License to Chrome is going to be Extended Warranty. Now this is going to increase our duration for all Cyberware effects by 15%. The second last perk for this build is going to be Ticking Time Bomb. Now this is going to charge a powerful EMP that's going to hit nearby enemies after 3 seconds. And the way that we activate this is by activating our operating system Cyberware. Now in this case, it's going to be the Sandevistan that we use to activate Ticking Time Bomb. Now what this is also going to do is apply stun and deal damage proportionate to the quantity and tier of Cyberware implants we have installed. Now that is also why we have tier 5++. On top of that, it will be minus 50% incoming damage while we are charging the EMP. And then the last perk for this build is going to be Edge Runner. Now this is going to allow us to exceed our Cyberware capacity by 50 points at the cost of 0.5%. Max health per point. On top of that, when you neutralize an enemy during combat, there is a 0.1% chance for each point you're over capacity that you will enter a Fury state. In the Fury state, we will gain plus 10 damage, plus 30 crit chance, and plus 50 crit damage. And now that we are done with the perks needed for this build, let's hop over into Cyberware. Now for Cyberware, I'm going to be starting up at Frontal Cortex. I went with Newton Module, which is going to give us a minus 1.35% cooldown instantly for all Cyberware after neutralizing an enemy. Now, every piece of Cyberware that I do use is upgraded to tier 5++, but this can be done at tier 5. Of course, it is highly recommended to upgrade them as their stats get even better. And then for the next set of Cyberware, I went with the Sandevistan for our operating system. Now this is going to be the Militech Apogee. Now this is going to slow time by 85%, as well as increase our headshot damage, crit chance, and crit damage by 15%. On top of that, when we neutralize an enemy, we will be able to extend our duration of the Sandevistan, as well as increase our stamina by 20 and 22%. Now I went for the Oracle Kuroshi Optics. Now what these are going to allow me to do is when I scan, it will highlight enemies within 19.5 meters, including enemies behind covers. This will allow me to see enemies through walls once I have scanned them. For the next piece of Cyberware is going to be hands. And for hands, we went with Shock Absorber. This is just going to give us a minus 25% on the recoil. For the circulatory system, I went with Biomonitor. Now what this Cyberware is going to do is it's going to use our healing items for us when we drop below 35%, making it so you no longer have to manually heal yourself. On top of that, it will give us a plus 15% health item effectiveness. And for legs, I went with Reinforced Tendons. Now this Cyberware is going to allow us to jump while in midair, allowing us to improve our movement even more. On top of that, we do have the perks which allow us to use dash. Now both of these combined are super fun in my opinion. And now for the integumentary system, I went with Proxy Shield. Now this is going to provide us with the closer an enemy is, the less damage they will deal to us, as well as it will give us minus 20% incoming damage at 3 meters, though this will taper off to 0% at 6 meters. And then next up, I went with Pain Inducer, which is going to convert 30% of damage taken into damage over time. And then the last integumentary system is going to be Shock and Awe. Whenever we take damage, we have a 10% chance to release a large electroshock that's going to deal 500 damage to enemies nearby us. Now on top of that, using Shock and Awe with Ticking Time Bomb is going to do a bunch of passive damage. And then for the nervous system, we went with Kreznikov, which is going to allow us to aim and perform ranged attacks while sliding, dodging, or dashing. On top of that, it is going to slow time by 60% for 3.75 seconds when we aim a ranged attack during a slide, dodge, or dash. Now, the reason I went with the Kreznikov is because I will still be able to slow time while I dash and aim, and I won't have to use my Sandevistan, which is great for when my Sandevistan is still recharging. Now, the next nervous system that I went with is Neofiber. Now, this is going to give us plus 11% mitigation chance and mitigation strength. And the last category for Cyberware is going to be Skeleton. Now, the Cyberware that I went with is Spring Joints, and this is going to give us a plus 19% mitigation strength. On top of that, I went with Scarab, which is going to give us plus 130 armor, but is going to do minus 20% to our movement speed. But with all the other Cyberware and perks that we have for movement, I didn't find that this was an issue. And then the last piece of Cyberware is the Epimorphic Skeleton. Now this is just going to increase our max health by 15%. So yeah, that is my guns blazing build for Update 2.0 in Cyberpunk 2077, which I'm mainly focused on the use of SMGs and assault rifles. On top of that, this build does not need Phantom Liberty to work, so for those of you who only have access to Update 2.0, this build will perfectly work for you. But if you wanted to take it even further and do own Phantom Liberty, there are tons of new Cyberware, weapons, and even the ability to unlock the relic perks to boost this build even further. If you enjoyed this video and haven't already, be sure to tweak that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to watch another Cyberpunk video, you can click on the video on the screen now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.